After another surprising week in NFL Survivor Pools, we've carved out some time for a bonus show reviewing the top 4 games that you should be considering in your Week 4 Survivor Pools. And it's coming up next. Hello, everyone. I'm Eric Lee.
And I'm Michael WIley, and we're the Fantasy Football Consultants. Eric, another crazy week, several teams go down. But real quick, before we go and talk about this week, I want to remind folks to hit the red subscribe button, please. We are we are loving your participation, but more subscribers helps us out.
Yeah, we're getting close to that big 10,000 subscriber level, and we got a lot of fun things planned, but we got to get there first. So let's get to the Week 4 spreads for NFL Survivor. Green Bay is a massive 10.5-point favorite at home against New England, and then a triplet of games where they're 6.5-point favorite. Detroit at home against Seattle, the Chargers on the road against Houston, and Philadelphia at home against Jacksonville. Let's analyze these 3 games. And if you were going to go with one of those 3, what would we go with? And the team I will eliminate, for me, Michael, is the Philadelphia Eagles. I am not picking the Eagles. No offense to the Eagles. They are undefeated, and I think they're the real deal. But I'm going to save them from week 8 to 10 when they host Pittsburgh, they're at Houston, and they host Washington. This Jacksonville team is for real, Michael. Tell me, I have some thoughts, but what did you... I've been really impressed with the maturation of Trevor Lawrence. He has a lot of poise. He's showing some mobility and moving around in the pocket. I see why people were so excited about him out of college.
Yeah, no, he looks so much better, but you really have to hand it to this defense. This defense has just looked fantastic. I think that's how they've built it around. It really helps a quarterback out when your defense is playing strong. And yeah, Trevor Lawrence hasn't had to come from behind all week. He hasn't been always running for his life. It makes a huge difference, and it's made him look a lot better. They've been pretty impressive. I'm a little bit afraid of them. It's always tough to go into Philadelphia, but like you say, there's just too much future value with Philadelphia.
Yeah, I mean, they have won the last 2 weeks. I'm talking about Jacksonville by 24 and 28 points against not lightweights, the Colts and the LA Chargers. So you talked about their defense, so I'm not going to do it again, but I want to shout out to how good their running game looks like. With James Robinson, looks like he's just found the fountain of youth here, looking a few years younger. And Travis Etienne is a guy that has a lot of talent in his own right.
I mean, James Robinson's not that old. Yeah, was an undrafted free agent, but he is still a young buck. And Travis Etienne, they're using him well. And like you say, Trevor Lawrence looks great. So Jacksonville, stay away from him right now until maybe they come back a little bit down to earth.
All right, so we're going to stay away from this particular game. We just talked about the Chargers, so let's talk about them here. They just got thumped by these Jacksonville Jaguars we just talked about, but they're on the road, 6.5-point favorites at Houston. Michael, if Keenan Allen wants to go into contract negotiations, I think he has a pretty good argument to how good the Chargers have looked with him in week 1 when they won, and the 2 games which they did not have, which they lost. And you tell me, you watch quarterbacks pretty closely. Was Justin Herbert healthy? I mean, he comes off this fractured rib cartilage. He did not look like himself last week.
No, that's exactly right. And that's what happened in that game. I mean, you think it's in LA, Jacksonville, obviously not one of the strongest teams in the league historically. And they got beat up, and it was mostly because of Herbert's health. And you could tell it was pretty obvious as I was watching the game. I was wondering why he was in the game. It didn't make sense to me that he would be there. And I don't know what we're going to get from him this week. I mean, I think it takes more than just a week to get healthy. So I'm afraid of this game. Yeah, Houston doesn't scare me like Jacksonville does, but the Chargers aren't right without their quarterback being right.
What's scary, Michael, is he only could play because he got a pain-killing shot by the same doctor who got him the starting job when he gave the shot to Tyrod Taylor and knocked him out. So I just this they have to be careful with this guy. I know they don't want to. You can't fall too far behind in that AFC West, which is so good this year. But this game scares me. It really scares me because I think I've been as critical at the beginning of the season as Houston with anybody, but they don't look like the worst team in the NFL. How about that for high praise? But they tied the Colts, and they had a chance to win at Denver and at Chicago in both of those games, and they came up just a little bit short.
Yeah, no, I think the Chargers win this game, but I don't think that it's worth gambling on it with the unknown of Herbert's health.
Let me be clear. Wait till week 7 when I expect Herbert to be hopefully back to full health and Keenan Allen definitely coming back. A little nervous, even if Keenan Allen plays, it's going to be his first game back. Is he going to be at 100%? So just wait. They host Seattle in week 7. I think that's the safe way to go. So we both, am I hearing this right? We both are not picking Philadelphia or the Chargers. Okay. So let's talk about the Detroit Lions at home against Seattle. So let me educate you a little bit, Michael, and the folks. What you want to do in NFL Survivor is pick on the weaker teams. Pick a team that is 1-2. Pick a team with a subpar quarterback. Why don't you pick a team that has a terrible defense? Oh, and by the way, pick a team that just in a couple regular season games ago walloped the other team 51-29. Wait a minute. I'm not talking about Detroit. I'm talking about the Seattle Seahawks. Now, I am going to give you a complete 180 in a minute, and I am going to start ripping the Seahawks. But before I do that, let me just throw it to you to get to your opinion. Were you surprised by the 6.5 point favorite Lions at home?
I don't think in my lifetime the Detroit Lions have been 6.5 point favorites.
It's been since 2018.
Okay,
you know how many things? We didn't even know what COVID was in 2018.
It's been a while. I'm sure that was even a similar crazy situation. Yes, I'm surprised by it. The game is in Detroit, so Seattle doesn't have the advantage of the 12th man where they've had some success. I think Geno Smith is a good game manager, but he's been found out a little bit. He's got that good receiving core, but their defense is not good. And Detroit has looked really, really good, at least on the offensive side of the ball, and I guess respectable on the defensive side of the ball. I feel pretty good about this game, Eric. I think this is a great game to go with Detroit. No future value.
Yeah, no. Well, Detroit's given up the most points of anyone in the NFL, so let's not get too high on their defense. But
because of that week 1, I mean, you throw that week 1, and it hasn't been quite so atrocious.
Well, when we talk about them losing 51-29 against the Seahawks in week 17 last year, you have to remember that the quarterback of the Seahawks was Russell Wilson. And they had on the defense Bobby Wagner and Jamal Adams. None of those players are playing for Seattle in this particular game. So let's talk a little bit about my Seahawks.
And that game was in Seattle.
And it was in Seattle, right? And this one's in Detroit. So let's talk about my Seattle Seahawks. What have they done this year? They got an emotional win against Denver at home in a situation where they could have easily lost by 14 some odd points. 2 fumbles on the 1-yard line. Seattle was very lucky to win that game. Then they get thumped by the San Francisco 49ers, and they lose to what I think is not a very good team, the Atlanta Falcons. Both the Niners and the Falcons have not won a game this year, except for when they beat Seattle. So as much as it's painful to say, Detroit's the better team here. I don't care where the game's being played. I like this game more than either of the 2 6.5 point favorites. Here's the thing. I think Detroit can pile up the points on Seattle's defense, which again really misses Jamal Adams. And I just don't think Seattle, if they're forced to in a shootout, I don't think that they can keep up. So, so far, Detroit's the one that I like the most.
Yep, agreed. But let's talk about that number one game. I never like to rely on a team with no defense. And guess what the Green Bay Packers have? They have one of the best defenses, if not perhaps the best defense in the league. And for that reason, to me, this is the safe pick this week. It's going to be obviously the popular pick, which is a reason to maybe go against it. But this is if you're feeling not so comfortable about the Detroit Lions, you could be pretty safe with the Green Bay Packers.
Yeah, I mean, what gives you far more confidence that the Packers are going to win this is it really looks like Mac Jones is not going to play this week. I mean, he had a severe ankle sprain, and their backup, Brian Hoyer, not only do I not think he's a good starting quarterback, I don't think he's a good backup quarterback. So it's really hard to see that New England can pull off an upset here in Green Bay. But stranger things have happened, especially this season. But here's the thing. The point of NFL survivor pools are not to get by the next week. It's to last longer than everyone else. So let me come down with my pick, my suggestion. If you are in a small home league where, there's only like 6 or 7 people playing or left, and you're just trying to hopefully survive people for a few more weeks, then sure, I can fully endorse going with Green Bay. But if you're in one of those massive pools where you still have hundreds of people and you think this is going to go to the later weeks of the season where you then have to pick 2 teams, I am telling you, my suggestion with your survivor life, see how I play nice and loose with their survivor life, to pick the Detroit Lions. Be bold. As Michael said, they have no future value. They'll have lower pick popularity, and utilize Green Bay in their 6 weeks. I counted them. 6 very good weeks that Green Bay has that you can utilize them later in the season. What are your thoughts, Michael?
Yeah, no, I think you hit it on the head there. I think it really depends on your own personal circumstances. You might be a little afraid of Bill Belichick. He knows how to drum up, a unique situation to disrupt a special talent. But who is that on the Green Bay Packers? I mean, really, it is kind of on the offensive side by committee. It's in Green Bay, obviously, always a little bit tough there. It's not winter yet, so maybe not quite so tough. And also Bill Belichick, I'm pretty sure he's thinking this is a season for growth, not necessarily a season to make it to the playoffs. And for that reason, I'm not sure he's going to dial things up like he used to. So I think the safe play is the Packers. But if you're in one of those larger pools, I really like this Detroit pick. I think it's pretty likely that they win this game. Something I would certainly, bet on. So very comfortable with it. I think that's a great way of putting it, Eric. Depends on your circumstances.
So let's say devil's advocate a little bit with the Green Bay. Tell me what you think. You talked about how good you thought their defense is. What do you think of their offense? You've had 3 weeks to assess it without Devontae Adams. What do you think?
Well, I think they figured out that they can't rely on some of these young athletes to make things through. They have Alan Lazard back, which is really huge. They're using Randall Cobb nicely, and they're using the running game against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. They were able to move the ball on the ground, right? I mean, Tampa Bay is the best rush defense in the league, or at least they have been. And Green Bay won that game in Tampa Bay.
Yeah, that was impressive. Do understand that no one who could catch a football in the whole city of Tampa Bay played in that game for the Bucs, as Evans was out and Julio Jones was out and Chris Godwin was out. So, but hey,
fair enough.
Still a nice win for Green Bay. So there it is, folks. We'd love to hear from you guys who you will pick in your NFL survivor pools. Until we see you next time, take care, everybody.
Be safe.
On your screen now is when available some of the week 4 DraftKings and FanDuel videos.